As director of photography, I'm in charge of the lighting, grip, and camera departments on a film set. And my main role is the visualization of the ideas of the director in relation to the story itself.
Director of photography or cinematography, in some ways I prefer cinematography because it's about controlling the cameras, the lighting and the setting of the scene. And in my case I tend to operate the camera, which quite often a European style director of photography would do. Americans are much more tending to light and leave the rest to camera operators and so on.
In the past, really, you would pick one camera and perhaps one or two film stocks to shoot on, but now we have a whole arsenal of equipment that we can use. Different cameras, different sensors, different lenses, and I think the audience is very sophisticated, very visually literate, and are capable of deciphering this multitude of images we can put in front of them.
Filming in 3D is very different from 2D. It's slower. It's a very technical format. There are a lot of technical constraints. And what can be a very simple shot in 2D, which is get a cutaway, let's pick the camera up, move it that way about 3 meters, turns into an enormous unit move on a 3D shoot. Your camera could weigh 60, 70, 80 kilos. So that's not a normal tripod, that's not a one person pick it up and just pop it over there. That's a huge amount of logistics you have to think about. You can't be spontaneous. It's, I suppose, one of the key problems.
As far as shooting is concerned, the hardest thing for me is actually getting out of bed on time and getting there, because it's getting harder and harder. The days are long. It could be anything from 12 to 16 hours. If I'm in the studio with like the lights banging down, my lights banging down on my head, that can be quite tough. If I'm out in the fresh air, which is what I prefer, or in the cool, it's fine. But making the day, our job is, we're integral in making the day. I mean, it's very important the DOPs, as I am, understand that you can't always maintain that exact standard aesthetically. If the day's fading or something arises, something between the director, actors, something else, weather, continuity, and you lose a bit of time, you sometimes have to get the essence of what the scene is about as best as possible and understand that the film might dip a little bit like a little piece of music or a little bit of water, but it'll come back up again. Trying to, from the first frame to the last frame, nail perfection is absurd and pointless and silly.
On 12 Years a Slave, we used one camera, and one camera only. The use of multiple cameras, I think, is very helpful in certain types of scenes, but its constant use leads to a compromise. Generally speaking, there is only one place for a camera to be to get the best possible angle. Usually if you put another camera into the scene for it to get a decent shot, it's in the same shot as the first camera. So you have to move the first camera to get the second camera in. So you've compromised the position. So, a lot of the times you don't want to compromise. You want that strong frame.
This is how I see it. Cinematography is the most important job. It has cinema in the title. That, if nobody turned up with a camera, it would be radio. But at the same time, we're the servants of the script and the director, producers to some extent, and to circumstance, to the weather, to the location.
The story is key, absolutely key. It's where it begins and ends, and if the script is no good, it will never be a good film. Doesn't matter what you think you can do to it. The worst people can say is, oh, well, script needs some work, but there are lots of opportunities for your photography. I'm not interested, because you're telling a story. If you don't like the story, if you don't really commit to the story, it's going to be a hard slog.
When I'm handed a script, the first thing I look for is readability. I try to forget I'm a cinematographer, think I'm just a punter, and see whether I enjoy it, whether it engages me.
I have to say that 2 years into my 4-year National Film School training as a cinematographer student, I wouldn't say thinking as a director, but I'm still aware of the fact that I know more about directors and actors than I do about cinematographers. That just shows how invisible we are. Even though I'm now a motivated, at that stage, cinematography student, I should be knowing everything about everybody with the cameras and the grips and the buttons. But I was ultimately deeply struck by film, and then I just lose the concept of who did what.
I don't want to be that visible as a cinematographer. I want my work to be almost unnoticed. I don't want people to say, I really loved that landscape shot. I want them to say, I really loved that scene, or I really loved the power of that story, or I was emotionally engaged. That's when I've done it right. If they're just talking about the pretty pictures, I've done it wrong.
Very proud of the fact that the kind of films that I work on, people don't stop to think how it's done. They just think it happened. That is part of the skill of a cinematographer.
Once the filming is done, I tend to walk away, hopefully with a big smile on my face, and wait for them to finish the edit. And once the film has been edited, I then come back in and sit down and do the final grading of the film, the final colouring, which is kind of like Photoshop.
Post-production, especially colour grading in digital, is immensely powerful and can hugely amplify and help what you've done, or it can get in the way and undo what you've done if you're not there. So it's a very important creative step. I do now grade on set the rushes before they get to the editor.
But in terms of, I don't know, as I say, in terms of getting into the industry, I think you just got to persevere. And you've got to really want it. You've got to really, really want it.
The reality is you're going to have all your breakfasts in a grotty car park or a damp field, and cold lunches or no lunches, and a missed supper and a long travel. So every day you need to be excited by the work you're going to be doing.
Develop your skills, specifically skills in relation to photography itself. Without the basic photographic skills, you'll never be able to progress beyond a certain point.
To break into cinematography today, what you should do is you should go to the BAFTAs and you should knock off the 5 nominees, just take them out. Take out Emmanuel, take out Rodrigo, take out ADM, Roger Deakins. If you want to break in, I would say it's less complicated now, 2014, than I would argue 1994 when I was breaking in, because we have all sorts of different kinds of image capture systems, from iPhones and up and down, GoPros. And what has gradually come to surface and come out into the world is, despite the differences in aesthetic standard and projection standards, there's the fundamental respect for a story that has to be told and is worth telling, must be told, regardless of what it's shot on.
You feel so privileged that people set things up for you. You know, you have these designers and, well, a script, a writer, producers and directors who get it together so that at one point you put your eye to the camera and you have this frame, and it's that's the important piece. You know, and you're the one looking, and that's why I like to operate the camera, because I feel like it's for me. I'm the person who's capturing that, and it's for me. You know, and if it works for me, hopefully it works for the audience as well.